So Hare Krishna, everybody, welcome. Thank you very much. This is the sixth session that we are doing for the Bhakti Gyan course on the Bhagavad Gita. Oh, I've got 8 there. That's wrong. Chapter 3 we are looking at today. Hopefully we'll cover the whole of this chapter today. And we're very fortunate to have Sanjana here who will guide us through this chapter. Just a very quick summary so far. Chapter 1, Krishna makes Arjun confront his demons and Arjun feels weakness of heart and he submits to the Lord that he's not going to fight, and he gave many reasons. We had 5 lessons from the Bhagavad Gita first chapter, and at some point we want to keep revising these lessons, so we will have a session where we'll just focus on the lessons, because the most important thing about Bhagavad Gita is to learn from it. It's not that, oh, we've done the course, fantastic, but actually to put it into practice in our lives is the most important thing. Then chapter 2, Arjun realizes the problem is much bigger than he thought. But Krishna immediately puts him on the spiritual platform. Now, remember the first instruction of the Bhagavad Gita. I'm not going to ask you what that is, but remember the very, very first instruction. You should all know it by now. It's basically explaining to Arjun that he is not this body, he is the spirit soul. And then Krishna explains his duty, 2 types of duties, if you remember, the Swadharma and the Sanatan Dharma. There's the material duties and the spiritual duties. And then Krishna describes the person who performs his duties perfectly. So how he controls his senses, how he walks, how he talks. So this is very important things. And now we'll come into chapter 3. And Sanjana, would you like to do a quick overview of the chapter? You want to do that? Yeah? Okay. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sanjana.
So the top here says Krishna could have stopped at chapter 2. And this is because in chapter 2, we get this sort of brief summary or overview of the key lessons of the Bhagavad Gita, the absolutely integral one, which is that we are a spirit soul, not the body. And this understanding about how we operate and do our duty both in the material world, but also our obligation to return back to the spiritual world and how we might go about doing that. But like Nabi Prabhu said just now, the main essence of the Bhagavad Gita is it's a text that's helping us to learn. So it's not just something that we read passively, but actually something that tells us how to do things. And this is where something like Karma Yoga comes into real use, because a lot of chapter 2 was the theory, although at the end we get a description of how an enlightened person walks, how they talk, how they act. It's still a very theoretical ground about where we are, who we are, etc. So in chapter 3, Arjuna wants to turn that knowledge, that theory, into action. And so for our own benefit, he's kind of playing a role in this pastime here. He inquires from Krishna, how do we do this? How do we put this into our actions? And you'll notice the title, Karma Yoga. Now, karma kind of refers to our actions as well. So it's a very action-based chapter. So there are quite a few themes in this chapter which are really important and which we'll learn about in more detail today. But a brief summary of them are, the first one is, by acting for the pleasure of the Supreme, that's Krishna, without our selfish motives, so instead of service of the Lord rather than for our own material desires, we can be liberated from the law of karma, or the action and reaction law. And we can attain, so we can achieve this spiritual transcendental knowledge of who we are, who we really are, and also a bit more about Krishna, so we can get a little bit closer to understanding and interacting with Krishna. Now we'll learn a little bit more about what these terms mean as we go through the chapters, but we'll learn that there are different types of activities, and that there's one type called Karamakunda, and that's slightly different from what Karma Yoga is. We'll learn about how each of these labels for activities are just labels for different types of activities we do in the material world, because we all have to act in the material world, but how the different terms relate to whether they're binding us to this world or whether they're liberating us from this world. Now, we also learn that even though we might be liberated from this world through karma and bhakti yoga in this lifetime, we're still going to continue to do our duty. We're not going to think, wow, okay, done it now, achieved the transcendental platform, just going to sit back and eat some popcorn. we're going to continue to work and set an example. And that's where we see some of the gurus doing as well. They teach and they lead by example. And because people follow those great examples, and then more people are encouraged to act in this way and to become liberated. Finally, we see that Arjuna questions the Lord about why do we commit sin? What is that feeling? What is causing us to commit sin? Even when lots of us think we shouldn't be doing this, why do we still do it anyway? And this is a really powerful question as well. And we learn some interesting things here about how the material world operates on us and binds us and causes us to do these things. Okay, so as usual, we'll pick some people to read through the verses. And then at each junction, like each end of a section, we'll do a little explanation. So let's look through. Does anyone want to read? Got lots of people raising their hands. Okay. Kishan, do you want to read?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Text 1. Arjuna said, O Janardana, O Keshava, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare? If you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work. Text 2. My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me. Text 3. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. Some are inclined to understand it by empirical philosophical speculation, and others by devotional service. Text 4. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by reunification alone can one attain perfection. Text 5. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment.
Thanks very much, Kishan. And Srinitya, do you want to read these final few verses up to text 9?
Yes, please. Text 6. One who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. Text 7. On the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind and begins Karma Yoga in Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is far by superior. Text 8. Perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. Text 9. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way, you will always remain free from bondage.
Brilliantly read.
Wonderfully read. Thank you both. So in verses 1 to 9, Arjun almost assumes the role of us, people who are new in the journey. We're not really sure what's going on. We're seeing all these different things. One person is saying that we shouldn't do anything. We should completely renounce the material world. We're also hearing that we have to act. We're forced to act because of material forces. So it's all very confusing. And all of us at the start of our spiritual journey, I'm sure many of us have these questions as well. It seems quite contradictory. So Arjun also assumes this place for us because he knows that we will be asking these questions. And so he says, I thought spirituality just means I can just retire from my active life. So I can just go and into the woods and adopt a life of a sannyasi and just simply let go of my duties, no longer be a warrior or a kshatriya, and just sit in seclusion, not see anybody. But what Krishna explains is, if it's not done in the genuine mood and it's not actually doing any service for a spiritual sense, it's actually just a form of escapism. Because at this point, we know that Arjun has been put in front of something that he doesn't really want to do. And he also knows that one form of spirituality is to go away in strict seclusion. And so he's kind of seems to be saying, oh, well, what if I just go and do this and sort of run away from the situation? But the truth is, like Arjun, we're going to be in these sticky situations. We're going to be in points where we have to make a decision about whether we do what's right or what is easy. Things like how we handle other people, how we handle money and possessions and things like that. They're all part of the material world. We have these awkward dealings. And so we might think, well, if I'm doing all this stuff, I'm always going to be in bondage to material things. I'm always going to have to act, and I'm always going to have to pay for those because of the law of karma. How can it be compatible? So Arjun is confused. He doesn't know what to do. And many of us might be confused at this moment as well. So Krishna then answers a few of Arjun's confusions. And he says, look, there's a difference between renunciation and name and just going away to hide in the forest, but you're still thinking about material things. You're still not really free from the forces of material desires and things like that. And actually truly in your mind having that renunciation and in your actions having that renunciation. He says, we can't just abandon our worldly duties. We will always act. In fact, even not acting is a choice. It's an action. If you see someone getting bullied in the playground and you choose not to speak up, you might think, I didn't do anything, but not doing anything there is an action because you're letting that person continue to get bullied. That's why we talk about bystanders, right, in the playground. So it's a similar thing here, that we should cultivate this mentality. We should think, I will act, and I will act for Krishna's satisfaction, for the Lord's satisfaction. So let's take that example in the playground again. Krishna, he has this very strong sense about what is right and about everyone treating everybody equally. So there actually, it would be our responsibility, especially if we saw a friend getting bullied, to speak up and to help them out, and to do so in that Krishna consciousness as well, and that I'm serving at the pleasure of the Lord. I'm serving his understanding, his spiritual understanding. Another way we can do this is also from how we work, what we do with the fruits of our work. So let's take, for example, when you're in school, you might get some really good grades because I know all of you are really intelligent based on the questions that you ask. You're all very, very smart people. But when you're working towards them, we can change the mentality from I'm just working towards them for my own pleasure, for my own greed and desire, and start thinking about how can I offer this up to the Lord? So if I'm really intelligent in maths, how can I use that to help the Lord maybe in my future? Or how can I offer up my grades and say, thank you, Krishna, I offer this result up to you. I don't claim it for my own, for my desires. I just offer it up to you, my success. You can have it. So that's a way in which we can use this in our own life. Nabi Prabhu, did you want to add anything else there?
Yes, yes, thank you. Very good explanation. Sometimes, especially when you're so young, you might be wondering, how can I offer? Sanjana made a very good example. If you're good at a certain subject, you can dovetail, try to connect it to Krishna. But it may be a little tricky for us to do that because we're right at the beginning of our journey. So, but what we can do is the last sentence on this slide. However, we can begin by offering our gratitude to the Lord and request him to engage us in a service. So always thank the Lord. Thank the Lord. If you think you can't do anything for the Lord, doesn't matter. Just thank him. My dear Lord, thank you for allowing me to live in this world, to have a healthy body, to have a healthy mind. Thank you for everything. And even if, say, we don't have good health for whatever reason, right? I hope everybody has, but if so, for some reason something's not quite right, thank you for that as well. Thank you, my Lord, for showing me that this world is not for me. In every circumstance, thank the Lord. Thank you, my dear Lord. Thank you, my dear Lord. Just keep that in your mind. Gratitude. Thank you, my dear Lord. Okay. Thank you for that. So shall we go to the next one?
Yeah, really nice point as well. Even when things are difficult, gratitude can help us through the way. So that's a really nice one to remember, especially in these current circumstances. Okay, let's have a few more readers. Shavi, do you want to have a go at reading 10 to 13?
You can unmute yourself, huh?
Yes, thank you. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures set forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yajna," sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. The demigods, being pleased by sacrifices, will also please you, and thus, by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign
Yeah.
for all. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of the yajna, the sacrifice, will supply all necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to demigods in return is certainly a thief. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others, who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment, verily eat only sin.
Very
Great,
good.
thank you, Shavi. And Janya, do you want to read text 14 to 16?
You can unmute yourself, Janya.
Can you hear us?
I think she may have problem unmuting.
Emma, do you want to try and read it then?
Or I think she can't unmute. What about Lokeshwar?
Yeah, Lokeshwar, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yes, Mataji. Text 14. All living bodies subsist on food grains which are produced from rain. The rains are produced by form of yagya, sacrifice, and yagya is born of prescribed duties. Text 15. Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. Text 16. My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice, thus established by the Vedas, certainly leads a life full of sin. Living only for the satisfaction of the senses, such a person lives in vain.
Okay, so in these verses 10 to 16, there is so much packed in, which is so interesting for us to learn. And basically what Krishna is outlining is different ways of living and the prescribed ways of living as well, and which ones will give us the best results in a long-term spiritual sense. And what Krishna highlights is that actually the best way of living and the prescribed way of living relies entirely on sacrifice, right from the beginning, there was this interaction of sacrifices which allowed everybody to be provided for in a proper manner. So the best way to sum this up, and there are loads of different aspects of these verses, and even every time I hear them being said again, I learn new things. But the best way to sort of sum it up as an introductory way is this yoga ladder, which describes the different rungs as follows. So right at the end there, we had this kind of lowest level where an individual lives in vain because they are solely interested in materialistic enjoyment. So really they just eat. They eat because they want to eat nice food, eat for pleasure. They sleep because sleeping then provides the next enjoyment when they become sluggish after eating, maybe after a big feast. And then they sleep and they just do all the things that, just for enjoyment, mating, meeting people, eating again, going out, partying. There's nothing much else going on there. So it's purely materialistic enjoyment. They don't see anything higher. It's kind of like a YOLO attitude of what you guys might have heard of. Then we've got one stage higher. So this is called Karamakunda. And here, a person still desires materialistic enjoyment, but now they kind of work out that they can't do it on their own, or that there's a higher power involved. So they think there are some demigods, and demigods provide a lot of the things in terms of the day-to-day material functioning. And so they try and achieve what they want via these religious regulated observances. So they might do like a puja to a particular demigod because they want something, but it's not out of like a spiritual sense of renunciation. It's out of, I want something from this. So it's an exchange. It's like a business transaction. Then one stage higher, we get this, what's called Sakama Karma Yoga. And this is where the individual soul starts to realize a little bit more, material things aren't really doing it for me. Like I keep getting material things and I'm happy for a bit, but it just runs out. It seems a bit futile. I just keep chasing things and none of them are making me very happy for very long. The happiness always just seems to run out. So now they're thinking to themselves, well, there must be something more to what I'm doing, to the work that I'm doing, to anything that I'm gaining. There must be someone else that I can do this for. So they begin now to offer a portion of their results to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the powers of Maya, the powers of desire and materialism are still very strong, and we can see that here. So we still maintain that selfish motivation. We don't want to give up our material body, our name, our fame, anything that we get. We still feel like, okay, I offered some up, but let me at least have something for myself. How can I give everything away? That's not fair. That's what we might be thinking at this point. So we still have a little bit of selfish motivation. I want to satisfy myself. Then the next stage is Nishkarma Karma Yoga. And at that point, we realize, like Krishna says, and as a part of work has to be done for us to maintain ourselves. We have to cook, we have to eat. That is without a doubt, when we're in this material platform, there are certain necessities that we have to carry out. But apart from those necessities, which we don't see as part of ourselves, we just see as necessary to maintain our shell, which is the body, everything else we offer up to God. So it's completely selfless. We realize that the body doesn't need anything more than the necessities because it is just a body, a shell, which is carrying our spirit soul. And once we've done that maintenance, we can offer everything up to God. And those who progress to this level of spirituality, they're not bound by good karma, bad karma, all this karmic implication. They feel much more peaceful because they're not always chasing after material things and getting angry when they don't get it or getting angry when they lose it. And they become liberated. So lesson 12, we can take this in a practical sense. We see Krishna talk specifically about what we eat and what we cook. Now, maybe at this point, you guys are not cooking yet. You're a bit young. You might be helping out, in which case you would be really, really good. But maybe not fully cooking all the meals yet. But when you cook, just before you eat, you can say to the whole table, I'm sure your parents will be very impressed if you do this. Okay, Mom, Dad, can we quickly offer up our food to Krishna. And then after that, we can eat the remnants once we've offered it up to Krishna. And that way you're also showing your gratitude, and you're eating what we call prasad, which is food that has been offered up to the Lord, spiritual food. And then you're not bound by that act of eating either. Now, some of these other things, these other lessons, these will be helpful as you grow up, but also you can ask your parents when you're already offering, let's say you're already offering the food in your family, be careful that when you're sitting in your room and you smell the auras coming up, or you go run into the kitchen and say, Mom, what's for dinner? You're not enjoying it with your eyes or smelling it before you eat it. But remember, that's Krishna's food before you offer it, then you're just having what's offered afterwards. Also, then you might ask your parents, let's cook what we know the Lord likes. And we'll learn a bit more about that in further chapters about what types of food are in the mode of goodness. But try and do that once you progress as well. But these are a little bit harder to do if you're not cooking, etc. But they're still important lessons to take on board.
Beautifully explained. And also Krishna says in one of the verses that we just read that if you're not offering the food to Krishna or to the Lord, we're only eating sin. And of course, we don't want to eat sin. We want to eat prasad. So that's a really important lesson. Whatever even if you're eating a packet of, you're hungry at school, you get a packet of crisps, open it. How are you going to offer it to the Lord? Just close your eyes and say, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, please, my Lord. I know this is not the best thing, but please accept this offering. That becomes prasad. In 3 seconds, you have converted something material into something spiritual. Isn't that a worthwhile deal? Very quickly, the yoga ladder, Sanjana very nicely explained the animal life, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. If that's all we're doing, that's really not good, no better than the animals. Karamakunda, that's the next stage where it's like a business. I like the way you said business transaction. Then we have Karma Yoga, which is split into 2, Nishkam and Samkam and Nishkam. And then we've got Gyan Yoga, that's another yoga, is considering it's relating to knowledge, getting knowledge of the Lord. Then Dhyan Yoga, Astanga Yoga, where you're sitting postures. And then finally, we have the highest of all the ladder, which is Bhakti Yoga. So we won't go into any detail, but just to let you know that we don't have to worry too much about going through all the different steps. We can actually directly take to Bhakti Yoga. This is the beauty. This is like the elevator. We don't have to climb the steps. We're going to go on the elevator straight up to the spiritual kingdom through doing Bhakti Yoga. So yes, Sakama Yoga, Nishkama Yoga. We don't have to worry about any of that. So anyway, this bear in mind. I'll send this with the notes so you have it available. We're not going to spend too much time on this because we'll run out of time otherwise. So
Okay.
actually, a couple of people wanted to read. There's somebody who we've never heard, and it'd be nice to hear. Preshlav, you can unmute. You can unmute. Preshlav, you can unmute and read. Okay. Otherwise, Ishwar. Okay, yes, go for it. Preshlav, can you say something?
Yes.
Yeah, good.
But for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self, only fully satisfied, for him there is no duty. A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason to not perform such work, nor he has any need to depend on any other living being. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty for for by working without attachment, one attains the supreme. Kings such as Janaka attained perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Whatever action a great man performs, common men will follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So
that's it. That's it. Who else? Sanjana, who do you want to pick? There's Ishwari, Hema. Hema we haven't heard from. Maybe Hema is a good one. What do you think?
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay. Hema, you can unmute yourself.
O son of Vrata, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. For I have ever failed to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties. O Bharata, certainly all men should follow my path. If I do not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds could be put in ruination. I would like to I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. As an arrogant perform their duties.
Ignorant.
Ignorant perform their duties with attachments to results that the learned may similarly act, but without attachment for sake of leading people on the right path, so as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties. A learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna.
Consciousness, yeah, very good, very good. Okay, Sanjana, who would you like to pick?
If we go for so many people.
I know.
BJ, have we heard from?
No, let's go for Abhijay. Abhijay, you can unmute yourself.
Hello?
Yes, go for it.
Okay. Text 27. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are actually carried out by the three modes of material nature. One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, almighty armed, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work in devotion and work for fruitive results. Text 29. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and becomes attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge. Text 30. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without dies for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. Text 31. Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive actions.
Okay, this is the final lot.
Brilliant. Let's see.
Maybe Rianch. Should we get Rianch to read? You can unmute, Rianch.
Yes, Prabhuji.
But those who out of envy disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge before and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three moods. What can represent accomplish? There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion, because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another duties, for to follow another path is dangerous.
Very good. Now, I don't know if Sanjana may be having problem with the internet. Sanjana, are you there? Okay, I'll carry on. Hopefully she'll be back soon. Karma Yoga, this here is explained quite nicely. Karma Yoga is outlined as the practical process by which one overcomes our material attachments by working as a matter of duty. I want to study so that I can help the world. That's a really good attitude. And in that way, also, you don't necessarily become so much attached to just to the studies, but it's actually, there's a higher cause for that study. So what about one who has achieved perfection through Karma Yoga? So what if somebody's achieved this perfection? Do they stop working? Do they retire? Can they retire, simply meditate on God, and they're free from any selfish motives? They don't have to do anything? No, Krishna says, even the perfected spiritualists, they continue working in this world for the sole purpose of setting the proper example for others to follow and be inspired by. So what is the lesson to learn? Is we live the philosophy of practicing bhakti, live the Bhagavad Gita. It will free us from the entanglements of this world, and we can set an example for others. In practical terms, what does this mean? It means that we remember the Lord. Best way to remembering the Lord is by chanting on beads, the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. In this age of Kali Yuga, this mantra is extremely powerful. It connects us to the Lord in bhakti. And by reading the scriptures like we are doing, the Bhagavad Gita in the Srimad Bhagavad Puran, very, very fortunate we are to have these wonderful facilities available to us so easily. So the lesson is learn to remember the Lord by meditating, by chanting, by reading the scriptures. All right, let's go to the, oh, sorry, there was, oh, wait. Okay. Oh, good, Sanjana's back. So let's pick a couple of people. I think Ishwari, you can unmute, and both of you can read one page each. Can you unmute?
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
Go for it.
Kishri is going to read first.
Okay.
Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into rape.
and which
Into
is
rage,
the
rage, huh? Rage.
rage,
Yeah.
and
Or
which,
wrath, which is anger. Yeah.
and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. Thus, the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Text 41. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. Text 42. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. Text 43. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjun, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust.
Well done. This is the end of chapter 3. It's a tough one, Karma Yoga. You've done well. And Sanjana, hopefully your internet is okay. Yep, great.
Yep. Yes, apologies about that. My
It's
Wi-Fi
okay.
dropped. Hopefully we have someone coming in on Wednesday. I've been informed, but it's a battle with the internet. So summary of verses 36 to 43, potentially some of the most important verses in the Bhagavad Gita, telling us about what impels us to commit sin, because I think many of you guys will relate to this. I definitely do. Sometimes you think, I know I shouldn't be doing this. Why am I still doing this? Why am I continuing to do this? Or sometimes you make a mistake, or you're really angry, you have an argument, you think, why did I do that? So silly, I got so wound up about something so silly, and I knew it was silly. Why did I do that? Arjuna asked Krishna that same question. And Krishna says, the root of this is our eternal enemy. It's something that is really, we need to avoid it at all costs. And what is that? Lust. So lust is like, it's just really deep, deep desire. And it can overwhelm us and overtake us. And so it gets to the point where, the little rational intellect in our head is saying, why are you doing this? The soul is saying, this is not going to make you happy. But the mind that's getting controlled by the modes is saying, I want it, I want it, I want it. And then everything else goes out of the window. So again, you might remember from last week, we talked about this idea of nipping something in the bud, of identifying it early. So from the minute we have that thing, maybe like you go into a corner shop and you think, I want a chocolate. You think, again, that exercise that Nabi Prabhu told us about last week, do I need this chocolate? Will my life be fulfilled forever if I have this chocolate? Will I die without this chocolate? And you ask yourself again, do I need this chocolate? Then again, you might think, maybe not. Second time you question something, your brain gets a little bit confused. And then you go, yeah, I'm not sure if I do. And by the third time you ask it to yourself, you're thinking, why was I even thinking that I actually wanted this chocolate? What a silly idea. And you've nipped it in the bud. The mind, then you get control over your mind. Your intelligence gets control over your mind. And also then your soul, your spirit soul, which is yearning for eternal happiness, for spiritual happiness, is then allowed that control over the intelligence as well. So lesson 14. we must regulate our senses. Let's not get overwhelmed and always like we see something, we immediately want it. We smell something really nice in a market, we really want it. We touch something like velvety and we think, well, I want this really nice clothes. That's just one example. And we destroy that desire at its source. And to help with this, now here we've got these 4 rules and regulations. These are of the Krishna consciousness tradition. Did you want to go into those?
Yes, very quickly, because we are out of time. Basically, having a vegetarian diet, very important. Okay? Very, very important. You may be in a family that has eaten meat from your very birth. Okay, slowly but surely try to come to a vegetarian diet. Okay, and if you already have a vegetarian diet, avoid onion and garlic. No boyfriend, no girlfriend. Okay. So your parents are going to be happy with me by me telling you this. No boyfriend, no girlfriend. That's really not good. No gambling. Of course, you probably don't do any anyway, but don't do any gambling. No cards, no playing cards with money, things like that. And no drinking and drugs. Just that you obviously won't be doing, and make sure you don't. And the second thing is, like we said in the previous lesson, chant and hear the Bhagavad Gita. Very important. That way you can control this lust. Well done. Let me open up for questions because we haven't got that much time. We got a quiz, so Pari will be running the quiz, and she'll be posting the Kahoot code shortly. And if anybody has not registered, send me a message, send Chitra, if there's anybody who's we're not sure. I know you've identified a couple of people, so we will look at that. There's somebody called Monica here. We just need to know who you are. So let's go for questions. Yes, Arjun, you can unmute and ask.
Well, good question. So, I was reading the Krishna and Sudama book, and does Krishna like poor?
So what was the question?
Does Krishna like poor?
Does like poor? Oh, he loves everybody. He doesn't like. Sorry, go on, Sanjana. Sorry.
Isn't it poor the food, right?
Yeah.
Oh, poor.
I'll have to refer to Navi Prabhu for that. But
yeah. What he likes, he went to the palace of, I'll give you an example. He went to the palace of Hastinapur. He went to the palace of Duryodhan. And Duryodhan had chapan bhog, a beautiful thali of food. Krishna said, no, it's okay. I'm going to go and see Vidur. Vidur had very simple shak bhaji, very simple. And in fact, Vidur's wife fed him not the banana, but the banana skin. But he ate it. It's not that we eat banana skin, but what he likes is the love that the devotee offers the food with. Yeah. So yes, he loves anything. He loves poha, he loves pizza, he loves lasagna. Of course, don't tell your mom I said this, yeah. But it's, as long as it's made with love for the Lord, he will accept it. That's the most important ingredient, the love.
wonderful point. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Nice question. Anybody else? Ishwari.
If you want to, like you said, we shouldn't. But if somebody did want to, go into a forest and just meditate on Lord Krishna, because he felt that he wasn't spending enough time with Lord Krishna, even just for a short time, what forest would you go to in England?
I mean, there are so many different layers to that question. Where do I begin? I think that's part of the point, right? For most of us, going to a forest isn't really all that practical anymore. And that is because we are bound by these duties, especially when we're out here in rainy old England. as opposed to the practical point about what forest you could go to, there are actually a whole range of forests you could go to. As someone who's been on my Duke of Edinburgh, I've been to quite a few forests. There's like the New Forest and other forests, but that's besides the point, because as we've learned today, it's not really the best way to kind of continue our spiritual journey, especially in this age when we're bound by so many different things pulling our way. We're not going to be able to escape the activities. So the question is now, how do we use our activities to help serve the Lord and to help return to the spiritual world as well?
Maybe better to go to the temple and take a little time out when you go to the temple. Sometimes we go to the temple, it's just quick darshan and we're in and out, have a little prasad, gone, finished. Sometimes take some time and we can ask your parents, let's go a little earlier. Let's spend a little time chanting in front of the deities. That will be more beneficial than going to a forest. And I would definitely not recommend anybody to go to the forest on their own. Please be very careful. Make sure your parents are aware exactly where you are and what you're doing. Yeah?
Also, what is the most spiritual forest in England?
In England, it's a tough question, that one. Any ideas, Jayanti? In Bandavan, in India, it's easy. Bandavan is the best. But in the UK, I would say any forest that will give you some peace and some connection with the Supreme Lord is good. It doesn't matter. This world, all of it belongs to Krishna. There's nothing here which is not belonging to Krishna. So don't worry too much about the forest. Huh? Too young, yeah. Too young to go to the forest.
Too young, yeah, for sure. And any forest in England, if you don't need to go to a forest, but any place in England can become a spiritual place if you make it so.
Very
remember
good.
that as well.
Very good point. Srinitya?
I have 2 questions. So my first question is, why did Krishna even create this world?
Wow.
Wow, very, very existential. But I mean, that is the subject matter that we're on. So how can we expect anything less? But we've talked a little bit about this previously, but not fully. Basically, what it was is that we were all in the spiritual world. And at this time, a few souls, all of us like that, and we should remember that even though there are so many people on this planet and so many people down in the material world, we're actually just a very small fraction of actual souls out there. There are loads and loads and loads in the spiritual world. So we were this small proportion of people, and we had this little thought. We've been thinking, wow, look at how Krishna is served, and there's, he's the Supreme Lord, he has all of these things happening, and it's so, he's in a very nice situation. I just wonder, and we never thought about it practically, like we will actually be there, but we just had a thought, I wonder what that feels like. I wish I could maybe spend a day in the life of Krishna. It was that kind of thought, like maybe we can have a switch. And at that point, just the thought, we don't realize how powerful our thoughts are. Krishna then fulfilled our desire in a way, but he also knew that we could never become the Supreme Lord, because otherwise, what would be the point of us having a Supreme Lord if he was not, there was only one. So we were put down in this material world where we had this power to we were a bit more powerful than the world itself. We could lord ourselves over it. And we had a certain amount of control. So, we could desire things and we could try and get them. But it wouldn't have that same happiness, and it wouldn't satisfy us in the same way, because we're not with the Lord. We're just on our own. We're independent. We're controlling our own lives, or so we think. And so that's how we ended up here, because we wanted to get that inkling of what it was like to be independent and in control. But we didn't realize that that's actually quite impossible in terms of the way that the world is.
Well, my next question.
Just a quick addition to that. Very nicely explained, Sanjana, and fantastic question, Srinitya. Just take this place as a hospital. In the hospital, those people who are not well, they go there and they get cured. So we are little bit ill. We're not well because we want to be separate from Krishna. So in this place, we are come here to get cured. So it's not that we're always going to be here. Like a hospital, there's always a hospital in every town, city, and only a few people live there. Those who are not well, we're not well, and we will become well, and we will go back to Krishna again. He will make sure of that. So what's your second question?
So my second question is, why did Krishna create all the other planets in the solar system, including Mercury, Mars, Venus, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Jupiter, and all the dwarf planets and its moons, if no one even lives on them?
Very good question. Now, I'm no astrologist or no astronomer either, so I can't speak for what might be on those planets. But we should understand that also there may be certain forms of life that are perhaps beyond our understanding or that we can't see with our current knowledge or technology. But all of these planets were built for a purpose. And actually, like Nabi probably said in the previous question, how Earth sort of functions as a hospital, other planets in different solar systems and galaxies, everything is part of the material world where souls might stay. They also function as hospitals. Let's think of them as little, different branches. Here we have different NHS hospitals all around the country. It's kind of a similar thing, but it's just different places for different souls in terms of, it's very complicated because different circumstances will put you in different planets or different life forms, etc.
Very nice answer, yes. And a brilliant question. Why has he created all these planets where nobody lives? As Sanjana said, actually, we cannot necessarily perceive the personalities, living entities who live on those planets, but there are. Even on the moon is actually regarded to be a heavenly planet, would you believe? But we don't have the eyes or the vision to be able to see that. So we should be rest assured that everything has a purpose in this world and nothing is without its meaning. Okay. Now we've only got about 3 minutes, so let's take 2 more questions. I think Arjun and Aaron. Arjun, you haven't asked right before, and Aaron, you can ask the question, and then we can go to the codes quiz. Yes, Arjun.
So, yesterday I was reading one like a comic book about India. Like I have books like that, and then there's one about the Bhagavad Puran. And so, what is it, the Bhagavad Puran?
Fantastic question. If you don't mind, I'll take that one, Sanjana. So Bhagavad Gita is how Krishna describes how to live in this world. Bhagavad Puran is a little different. It describes, it's much bigger. Bhagavad Gita is 700 verses. Bhagavad Puran is 18,000 verses. And in fact, we are going through that step by step as we every day almost. 18,000 verses, and it discusses how to die, what happened was a king got cursed, 7 days to live, and he decided to go to the Ganga, and he waited there for the sages to come. The sages came, and one particular sage called Sukadeva Goswami spoke to him for 7 days, 7 nights, describing the pastimes of Krishna. So Bhagavad Puran is about the pastimes of the detailed pastimes of Krishna, lots of stories, lots of wonderful events that took place in the history of mankind. And also describes how one can leave this world and go back to the spiritual world. So Bhagavad Gita is how to live in this world. Bhagavad Puran is how to die in this world and go back to the spiritual world.
Can you buy it?
I can send you the link. You can get it online. But it's you can join us on Friday evenings. We're doing it chapter by chapter. If you're in the UK, 7 o'clock in the evening. I'll send the details on the group. Okay, Aaron, last question.
I have a couple. I have like one question. What happens if you were born in another religion, like in the next life? Or you were like no religion in the next life?
I mean, part of in terms of where you're born, who you're born under is also determined by karma and consciousness. So let's say we were all here lucky enough to be either born into a tradition of Krishna consciousness, or even I wasn't actually, but I just came across it and now in this community. If we continue the spiritual work and our consciousness at the end of our life is, I want to continue this journey that I've begun, we'll kind of be born in a similar circumstance where we can continue it. At the same time, you're not limited by any tradition that you get born into. And also it's not really like, we don't really see it as like a religion in a sense. And if you are on a path where you are serving the Lord, whatever you call that, the Lord, you know, from Krishna to Allah to, you know, they're all different names for Supreme Lord. If you understand the principle, which is I need to return to the Lord and I need to serve the Lord, and eventually I will be in the spiritual world with the Lord, that is my final aim. It actually doesn't matter what you call it, because it is God consciousness and it is spirituality. That principle is actually the same principle across many religions. When you read those texts, the core principle of serving God, thinking of God constantly and renouncing the material world is in nearly every spiritual text.
It's a fantastic answer and a really important question. We may be born as a Hindu, but convert to Christianity in the afternoon. And in the evening, we become a Muslim. Actually, religion in that sense is a misnomer. It's can be misleading. Our real religion is that we're connected to God as servant. And that God, as Sanjana very nicely explained, has many different names. He's known as Krishna. Some know him as Christ. Some know him as Allah. Doesn't matter, it's the same one God. You know? And the main thing is to connect with that same one God. Whether one is a Hindu, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. The connection is the most important thing. That was a spectacular question. Today, we had so many good questions. And each of those questions, we could literally spend a whole class on. So I'm very impressed by the standard of questioning. And I'm very impressed with Sanjana, of course, as always, very, very good answers. So let's go to the Kahoot. Please log on, and the number is 859054, and you can share the screen. Pari, let me make you host. If I can see you. Is everybody logging on into? Okay. So, Pari, I've made you co-host. So
yes, Prabhuji. And sorry, Monica was my mom's name. This is my
no,
mom's
that's okay.
laptop,
No,
so
no
that's
problem.
why.
No problem.
I'll share my screen.
This is always the part I really look forward to the most. So you guys as well. And next week, I think, Lokeshwar, you can do the quiz if you want. Huh? Lokeshwar, let me know if you're able to. Is everybody on? Can we start? Anybody missing? I'm going to unmute. You can unmute yourselves. And if anybody's missing, let us know. We'll wait a second.
Could you give us 1 minute, please, Prabhu?
Yeah, of course, of course. Anybody else missing? Anybody want to know the code? Oh yeah, there it is. 859054.
We're ready, Prabhu.
Fantastic. So go for it, Pari.
Okay. Right. So chapter 2, part 2 of the Gita. All right. What is the first fundamental step in spirituality? You must humbly submit to a guru, find a solution to your problems yourself, become a guru, or don't tell anyone your problems.
Very good.
And red is the correct answer. True or false? Swadharma and Sanatana Dharma must be executed side by side. Is that true or false? Yeah? Okay, I think we have all the answers now. 3, 2, 1. True.
Okay.
False? Guys, the 9 people that selected false.
No, but let me not know what the difference is between Swadharma and Sanatana Dharma. But a very nice question.
A person of steady intelligence is someone who puts their happiness above everything, thinks of all emotions as the same, controls their senses, or shows ignorance. This is a multi-select, by the way. And so Swadharma, like Prabhuji said, is your duties in the material world, and Sanatana Dharma are your duties for Krishna and your spirituality.
Good.
And yes, so blue and yellow were the correct answers. Shruti on top. True or false? Dharma translates as religion.
Tricky question, actually.
2, 1. And it's actually false. Dharma is known as duty. That's why Swadharma and Sanatana Dharma they're your duties.
And we sort of touched on that because religion we can change,
Yeah.
but the Dharma we can't change. Very good question. Tricky question.
So in the material world, thank you, Prabhuji. In the material world, one is fixated on perfect knowledge if they are unaffected by any good they obtain, unaffected by evil they obtain, neither praise or despise it, or is it all of the above? And it's actually all of the above.
Ah, okay, good, good.
True or false? Attachment of an object or person, so that's a mistake there, is where many problems start. Yeah. And the answer is, it's true.
Unless it's, of course, Krishna we're attached to.
Oh, yeah. He's the only exception. All right. The next step after developing attachment is anger, lust, delusion, and bewilderment of memory or loss of intelligence.
Brilliant.
So in the PowerPoint that we did last week, we saw steps. So try to remember those steps and let's see if you can find the answer. Yeah, so everyone who got lust, that's correct.
Well done. Yeah, well done.
Chapter 2 is which form of yoga? Is it Karma Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, or Jnana Yoga?
Very good.
So you did Karma Yoga today, so clearly that can't be the answer. 3, 2, 1, and it's Sankhya Yoga.
Oh,
Wow, only 2 people got that right.
Krishna, yeah.
Well done to the 2 people who got that right, though.
It's entitled Sankhya Yoga as well. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
tough
Our
question.
body changes, however, our soul stays the same. True or false? This one's a bit of a recap from the first part.
That's good. That's good. Nobody should get that wrong. Please.
And it's true.
Maybe they misunderstood the question.
Maybe. So this is a double point question. Who is an Atmarama? A spiritually realized soul, the Atma of Rama, unaffected by gain or loss, or unaffected by honor or dishonor. And this is a multi-select as well. So there's more than one answer, guys.
3 answers, I presume, right? Yeah.
So whoever fell for my bad joke, it definitely wasn't yellow. It's not the Atma Rama. It was the other three.
Very good.
The last step of falling down from spirituality is unsatisfied lust, delusion, bewilderment, or being thrown into gross material existence.
Hmm.
So again, this is a question from the steps that we learned last week.
The last step, right?
Mhm. And yeah, so it's being thrown into gross material existence.
Well done to the 9 people who got it right. That's a tough question. Good one. Nice question as well. Some easy, some tough. Very good.
This is another double points. How many days did Krishna take to gain knowledge from Sandipani Muni? Was it 32 days, 64 days, 365? Or he didn't need to? He was born smart. 3, 2, 1. So it's actually 64 days. Even though he is God,
Yes.
Krishna had to set an example for all of us humans. So he still had to learn. So we had Prathamesh at 3rd,
Yeah.
Hema at 2nd, and
Shruti.
Shruti, Hema, and Prathamesh. Well done. And
Very
runners
good.
up are Lakeshwar and Ishwari. Well done, guys.
Fabulous effort. Thank you so much, Pari. That was very nice. Just want to double check. Lokesh, are you okay to do next week's quiz? Are you?
Yes, Babuji.
Okay. Now, just do, I think, 10 questions. 12 was fine as well, actually. That was good. And you can just run it by Chitra. I'll send you the details, okay? You can send it to her to double check the questions and the answers. And then Rianch, you can do the week after. So I'd like to thank everybody. I'd like to especially thank Sanjana, as always. Very clear and very nice explanations, very sweet explanations of the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is not easy, especially chapter 3, Karma Yoga, but you navigated us very nicely through it, Sanjana. So appreciate that.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you everyone for the reading, for the lovely questions as well. It makes the session really, I learned so much from everyone here. You're all so wonderful, brilliant students.
And great questions. So I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope we can see everybody next Sunday, and have a good week. Try to read the Gita, try to go through the notes. I'll send it on the group. It's very important. Huh? Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare